Welcome to Mika Amcha Yisrael. There's something deeply unsettling about an adversary who knows precisely how to destroy you and lies in wait for the opportune moment. But more wondrous still is when Borei Olam intervenes, disorienting the disruptor, and transforms that moment of danger into a display of heavenly compassion. In this week's Parashat Balak, Bilam makes a statement that seems benign at first. He turns to Balak and he proposes, "Stand beside your burnt offering, perhaps Borei Olam will appear to me." It sounds almost ceremonial, but what Chazal reveal beneath the surface is anything but routine. The Toseftim Berachot teaches, had Bilam succeeded in identifying the precise infinitesimal instant when Borei Olam orchestrates divine wrath, in a second we would have been obliterated. Am Yisrael would have been eradicated in an instant. That word was so brief, so piercing, and so potent, even the Malachim would have been powerless to intercept it. Only Borei Olam himself could have intervened, but the question remains, if Bilam wielded such catastrophic potential, why did he delay? Why seek Balak's collaboration? Why not pronounce the curse earlier back in Midian? Chacham David Pinto Shalita offers a profound instant. Bilam recognized that devastation required more than precision. To fracture the spiritual armor of Am Yisrael, he needed to dismantle their inner fire to accomplish what Amalek had attempted and failed to do. He had to cool their fervor, diminish the blazing passion of their emunah. He had to cloud their clarity, distort their kedusha, their identity, and their collective mission. But to execute such spiritual subterfuge, he couldn't operate alone. He enlisted Balak, not for military strategy, but for mystical reinforcement. Chacham Pinto reveals a remarkable construct within their names. The first two letters of Bilam, Ayin and Mem, combined with the last letters of the name Balak, spell out Amalek. Likewise, the first two letters of both of their names spell out the word Bilbal, Bilabel, confusion, disruption, mental turbulence. This was not a mere alliance, it was a spiritual resurrection of Amalek's ideology, a coordinated scheme to spiritually confuse, dismantle, and consume Am Yisrael. But once again, Borei Olam outmaneuvered them. At the precise instant that Bilam sought divine wrath, Borei Olam withheld it. That moment, scheduled and expected each day, simply didn't happen. Why? Because Borei Olam orchestrates victory through chesed and triumphs over evil measure for measure. Bilam sought to disorient the people, so Borei Olam disoriented him. He obscured his perception, distorted his timing, and completely neutralized the assault. As the Haftarah and Micha proclaims, Ami, my people, recall what Balak, the king of Moab, devised, and how Bilam responded, so that you may come to recognize the greatness of Borei Olam. Let me share with you a riveting episode recounted by Rabbi Chil Spiro regarding his grandmother that brings this entire concept into vivid focus. In 1948, as Medinat Israel emerged from the dust of the exiled Lipsker family, settled in the city of Lod, a space that was spiritually devoid of Torah. No shul, no yeshiva, no community. But they didn't come to Lod to observe, they came to ignite. They acquired a dilapidated home and transformed it into a modest Beit Knesset. But they knew a shul was only the beginning. Their vision was broader, to establish a yeshiva, a spiritual epicenter that would breathe life back into the heart of that city. They hand-painted a wooden sign and mounted it to the front of the building. Kan tukom yeshiva, here a yeshiva shall rise. It wasn't a message, it was a covenant with Borei Olam. But the modernist establishment didn't see it that way. One day, a government officer encountered the sign. His expression turned to scorn. This wasn't the Israeli vision. He desired progress, not piety. He tore the sign down and replaced it with a bold declaration of his own. Kan yukom mu'adim no'ar, here a youth club shall be erected. A new generation divorced from Torah, confusion in the place of construction and conviction. The Lipskers were devastated. But Safa Mala, the family's indomitable matriarch, rose with an iron resolve. She didn't protest, she acted. She marched straight to the building, tore down the officer's sign in full public view, and restored the original proclamation, Kan tukam yeshiva. The officer was enraged. You're making a grave mistake, old woman. This is insubordination. One more move and I will personally see to it that you are imprisoned. She stood tall. We came from Russia, she replied. We endured the Bolsheviks. We withstood Stalin, and you believe I fear you? We came here for a sacred purpose. A yeshiva will rise on this ground no matter your threats. The officer, seething, lunged forward to remove the sign again, but before his hand could reach it, Safa Mala stepped forward and struck him across the face with a single slap. Gasps rippled across the crowd, and then silence. The officer stood paralyzed, and instead of retaliating, he turned around and he departed. But the family remained on edge. Surely retaliation was coming. They waited. They waited for the knock on the door. Days passed, weeks, months, nothing. And then 4 months later, a knock. At the door stood a man, his head bowed, a kippah barely clinging to his hair, the early traces of a beard. "You don't recognize me," he said. "I'm the officer, the one that your Safta struck." They stood in stunned disbelief. That night, he continued, "I couldn't sleep. I realized I was fighting against my own people, fighting against my own neshama. That slap, it awakened something in me. I had to change." Safa Mala had not merely defended a structure. She had revived the neshama. The officer embraced Torah. His family integrated into the community. And today, his grandchildren learn in that yeshiva and many yeshivot across Eretz Yisrael. That building today, it still stands. And guess what? So does the sign, Kan Tukam Yeshiva. Ladies and gentlemen, Bilam had a plot. Balak had a strategy. Cool their flame, cloud their clarity, catch the moment, crush the people with a word. But Borei Olam denied that moment. He converted curse into beracha, confusion into clarity, and turned into a spiritual ambush, a lesson in divine providence. That officer in Lod, like Bilam, believed he could dismantle holiness with a piece of wood and a few bold words. But Safa Mala, she confronted confusion with unwavering conviction. She didn't merely restore a sign. She reinstated clarity. She restored Torah. She reignited neshamot. And the officer, he left bewildered and returned transformed, because that is what Borei Olam does. He confuses those who seek to confuse us. He obstructs wrath. He constructs sanity where others sow destruction. And he reminds us always that when we rise for him, he rises for us. Israel. Who is like this nation? A people whose grandmothers are warriors, whose clarity outlasts confusion, whose visitors in yeshivot rise not merely from buildings, but from bravery. And when there's even an adversary, he too can become part of the story. Shabbat shalom and mivarach.